I always love our conversations with ESPN MLB insider, senior MLB insider, Jeff Passan. How are you, Jeff?
Hello, Richard. How are you?
I am hanging in there, sir. I'm hanging in there. This seems it seems, 2 weeks ago sounded ugly. Then last time we chatted last week, it was, okay, everybody's quiet, so I'll take that as good news. And now people aren't quiet anymore. And this seems particularly ugly, Jeff. It sounds very ugly.
Yeah, it's ugly. I still don't think we're at the point now where we need to full-on panic. To me, I think the full-on panic comes. Well, first we have to wait and see what the union says exactly in its proposal back to MLB. We understand that they are going to outright reject the economic proposal that MLB gave them on Tuesday by essentially not acknowledging it. Our friend Scott Van Pelt said it's essentially like if you have $1 million home and someone gives you a $200,000 offer on it. You're just not going to acknowledge that offer ever existed. And I think the players aren't going to acknowledge that the economic proposal from baseball ever existed. So I think after that, what we're going to get to see is, A, what do the players want? And B, how do the owners react? And that is going to be the biggest tell of all, Rich, because if the owners say, you know what, we can't talk with these people, we're not going to do this, it's going to be gridlock for a little while. And the idea of coming back with spring training on June 10th and opening day by the 4th of July simply is not going to happen. So I think that is what's at stake right now.
Well, let's take it piece by piece then, Jeff. I mean, June 10th seems very pie in the sky. Let's just take it one piece at a time. Has there been agreement at least on the safety protocols, or that's still something that's out there? That's just taking a backseat. There makes no sense to talk about it.
There's no in stone agreement at this point, but there's not going to be an issue there.
Okay.
Everyone, I've been telling you this for a while now. Everyone wants the same thing with safety. Like everyone wants players to be healthy and for coronavirus not to infiltrate clubhouses and to do everything they can to ensure that doesn't happen. And I think that players, while inconvenienced by this, are not ultimately going to put up much of a protest. They want they want hot tubs and cold tubs, for example, and they should, because that's part of their recovery regimen. And when you're going from 0 to 60 and trying to restart games as quickly as they are, there's the possibility of injuries, and you want to make sure that your body is as well tuned as it possibly can be under the circumstances.
So, I mean, there's give and there's take and all that sort of stuff, and as long as everybody's safe and happy, I get that. So, okay, let's place this aside. So this is just basically a money issue, right? And so...
Totally a money issue.
So,
and here's, listen,
yes.
The players say we're concerned about our health and safety, and they are. I don't think that's disingenuous. But the problem is they're also concerned about the money, and the money is the thing that they don't have an agreement on at this point. The health and safety, if you told baseball players that we are going to wipe away all of the money issues that you have, and all we need to play tomorrow is a health and safety agreement, they would get it done in 24 hours. Truly believe that. On the other hand, to do that with money, it's going to take a lot longer than 24 hours.
Well, because certainly if it sounds like, the position is owners saying, I know we agreed to the prorating back in March, but the boots on the ground that the virus has placed on all of us changes everything. Now that we know there's definitely going to be no fans, now that we know the circumstances under which we will have to play the prorated games, we didn't factor that in March, or we didn't agree to things back in March knowing what we'd have to do here in May.
Here's the thing. The league does believe that it factored that in. The league believes that there's language in that contract and that deal with the Players Association that absolutely covers the scenario that you just mentioned. And there are words in there about economic feasibility and good faith bargaining, and that essentially baseball believes the way that the contract is worded, and I've talked with a number of lawyers who agree with the league on this, that the way that it's worded, it essentially puts the onus on the players to bargain in good faith over what salaries are. Doesn't say specifically over what salaries are going to be, but it says over the economic feasibility, and you can take economic feasibility and extrapolate it out to salaries, considering those are going to be the largest taker of capital from owners.
So now that we're in a good old fashioned lawyer taking a look at contract conversation. What if the players believe that the owners aren't dealing in good faith because of what Max Scherzer's clearly saying, that that this is another pay cut they're being asked to do, and the way that the owners are putting it out there by saying that there's not everything is public information and that baseball's economic strategy would change if everything was under the light of day. The reading in between the lines, there's a lot of threats about union busting and using public opinion in a bad faith way, right? Am I reading that correctly, Jeff?
I don't. I'll tell you, I don't. I personally have not gotten the vibe of union busting from this.
Okay, good.
I think that MLB just made a kind of a repulsive offer.
Okay.
That's just what it was. I think if you want to say that's not bargaining in good faith, there's a reasonable case for that to be made. But I also think that offer shows MLB believes that it is operating from a position of strength, because otherwise it would not offer something that it knows outright is going to be rejected by the players and is going to probably insult the players. In that position of strength, I don't know what it is exactly, because the people who are running this negotiation are professional negotiators and are much smarter than I am. But I think they have the backing of owners right now who want to be hard line about this. These are people who are not used to losing money, and there's a chance that they're either not going to make as much. It's clear they're not going to make as much as they have in the past. But if you take MLB at face value, they say that owners are going to be losing tens, in some cases hundreds of millions of dollars. And the problem that the Players Association has is that it just doesn't believe that. And this is something, Rich, that goes back. It's endemic. I mean, it is built into the DNA of the Major League Baseball Players Association for the players to come up and be told and taught, do not trust Major League Baseball. Do not trust Major League Baseball. I mean, I don't know if the words are exactly said like that, but that's essentially the message that's delivered to every player who comes up in the big leagues. And so when you get to situations like this where MLB is saying, trust us, players are going, we want to see some documents. We want to see how much money you guys are making with your local television contracts. We want to see how much money you're making in national television contracts. We want to see what your projections are if you play no games. We want to see all of these things, local sponsorship agreements, stuff like that. We want you to provide evidence that you are going to be as poor as you say you are, because we can't take you at your word after all the things that you've done both historically and in recent years.
All right, so then Jeff Passan of ESPN here on the Rich Eisen Show, senior MLB insider. Are we essentially right now getting a full-on collective bargaining agreement argument, like front-loading the CBA conversation? Is that what's happening right now? Because if that's what's happening right now, then we got a problem. Because when you're talking about when you're saying words like "open the books," that just sounds like 2011 and NFL labor dispute to me right now. I just got a flashback, man. That was
sounds familiar, right?
Yeah, too familiar to me. Because again, it sounds like I'm being alarmist and you're telling me not to be. That's what this sounds like. No,
I don't think you're being alarmist at all. I think the alarm bells are close to sounding. I think that baseball is further away now from playing than it was before this week. This week has not helped. And maybe we look back, Rich, in the things that happened Tuesday and the reaction of the players Wednesday was necessary for getting past this impasse that we seem to be stuck in right now. But it may just be the start of something that takes baseball down a path of destruction. And that's what this is. Like, that's, again, I have said this from the start, man, and I just have trouble, even when I see something or hear something that says, like, screams to me, this is bad, Jeff. I get back to the idea that if baseball doesn't play this year and the NBA and NHL and NFL do, baseball, both the players and the owners have dug their own grave.
So then how much...
Like that's it. That's as simple as I can put it.
I know. So then what is that at least in the mind's eye of everybody as they're talking? At least are they aware?
I think so. I mean, I think what we have here is a group of men who in some cases inherited, but in a lot of cases made billions of dollars and did so through shrewd business decisions and are not likely to be trifled with when it comes to their money and losing lots of it potentially. And I think we have a players association that feels emboldened, that feels, for the most part, together, and that feels insulted by what happened on Tuesday with the economic proposal from MLB. And man, if you want to unify a group of mid-20s, late 20s, early 30s, mid-30s, like very high testosterone men who have pride in what they do and want, it's the wrong group of guys to insult. Like, I don't know, maybe there's not a right group of guys to insult, but this group in particular, insulting them is not going to make them cower. It's not going to push them away from their goal and their objective. It's going to embolden them. And they feel emboldened right now because they feel like not only are they in the right economically, they feel like they're in the right morally too. And while they understand that the general public looks at players who want to get what they're supposed to get and who want to get what the market will bear for them as greedy, which has never made any sense to me because
everybody else would do it.
Everyone else are trying to get theirs. I mean, it's just the reality of the world that for some reason the general public sides with owner over labor, and I don't get that.
Jeff Passan here on the Rich Eisen Show. A couple more minutes left with you. What's the Trevor Bauer beef with Scott Boras? What's that all about? Give me the skinny on that.
If I had more information, I certainly would tell you. Trevor likes beefing with people. Like, that's just his thing, man. If he feels a particular way, he will talk about it. Well, and I will say this: Scott Boras has a lot of influence over the union right now. He's got the ear of people at the MLBPA. He's got half of the executive subcommittee as his clients. And the executive subcommittee is the group of 8 players who make the biggest decisions and who are on the calls with MLB. And, Max Scherzer, a client of Scott Boras's, he has consolidated a great amount of power in this situation and is not afraid to wield it. And he is one of the hardliners. He is one of the people who believes that the agreement from March is valid for the players, that they should push for their full pro rata, and that they need to stick to it. And, whatever you want to think about Scott Boras, it's fine. But one thing that you must think about him, he's a good negotiator generally.
Yeah.
Like that is one area of his. You can disagree with him, morally, ethically. You can think he's the devil, guy's been a pretty good negotiator throughout his career, and Garrett Cole has 324 million reasons to say that, and Anthony Rendon and Steven Strasburg have 245 million reasons, and you can go on and on. I mean, the guy booked $1 billion in contracts this offseason, so he is when he's in the room doing something right.
And also, I learned in the conversation I had with him last week, he can fill out a prescription. I had no idea he's got a degree in pharmacology from the University of Pacific.
He is a pharmacologist as well. But don't ever call him Dr. Boras because he might get a bigger head than he already has.
Oh, my gosh. So Trevor Bauer's basically hearing Scherzer in these conversations and assuming it's Boras. Is that, should we? I know you don't want to wade into these waters, I guess, but
yeah,
that's.
I'm not. I think that is a fair connection to make, but I don't know what caused Trevor to say that. I do know that there's a not insignificant group of people who believe that Boras wields too much power and too much influence, but now we're just getting into politics and palace intrigue and the sort of stuff that is as much and quite often hearsay as anything.
Okay, so we've got to let's brass tacks it again. This is. I feel like I go through therapy with you every single time you're on here. So let's brass tacks it here. It's May 20. What is it? 28th. May 28th. June 10th seems pie in the sky. Certainly, if baseball players are saying we'll give you 110 games, I mean you got to start yesterday. If you don't want to play in bone chilling November, like a World Series game is snowed out, unless of course we just go into a bubble community,
neutral site,
right? You know what I mean? Like I don't know, like so yeah. You well percentage wise, it for me. What do you think? What do we got here and when? If at all. For the whole enchilada.
Yes. I'm still over 50%. I was at 75 yesterday afternoon or so, and part of that is because I thought the union was gonna bend a little bit. I did not believe that the union was gonna come out as strident as it did, and when that happened, that definitely decreased the possibility of a season happening this year, but it certainly did not nullify it. What it did was set up a scenario in which the doomsday trigger could be pulled. It's going to come down to the owners. I mean, I do believe when the players say we want to play, I do actually believe that. I think there are some owners who don't.
Really?
I think there's some owners who worry. Yeah, I think there's some owners who worry that playing is going to cost them too much. They're going to lose too much money, and that they would rather just punt the 2020 season. And that is, it's a scary thing to hear.
It is because
it feels like you're focusing just on 2020 and not the repercussions beyond.
Damn straight, because to use the mid-'90s analogy, Sosa and McGuire's not walking through that door. Cal Ripken Jr. breaking Lou Gehrig's streak prior to that. It's not walking through that door. There's not going to be a single kumbaya moment or season that could appear out of nowhere, right? Like they got back in the 90s to get everybody back in the fold.
The thing. You never know when a ragtag group of people with a kid coming out of prison who throws really hard in the California Penal League and a guy in center field who really fast and steals a lot of bases and an aging third base.
You're going Indians on me. I get it. I know you're going Major League on me. I know.
Listen. That is the Clevelander in me.
I like it.
And look, the Indians winning, it's not the Cubs winning, it's not the Red Sox winning. And you're right, something like that does not just materialize to rest. But we also couldn't have predicted Sosa and McGuire. We couldn't have predicted Cal.
Right.
I just think that what happened in 1994 should exist as a history lesson, and that everybody, and I mean everybody, involved in this process better understand what the consequences would be. And here's the thing, like, I genuinely think that this is going to show who cares about the game of baseball and who cares about the bottom line. And it'll be interesting to see what the answer to that question is.
Well, I don't know if this is just the bottom line here, to use that phrase. I don't know why baseball seems to be the only league where those have to be pitted against one another. Again, I don't know what is going on with the NBA and the NHL, and obviously the NFL has a few weeks and months to have to deal with something like this. But why is it always baseball where it comes down to, well, it's either for the good of the game, who loves the game, and who loves the dollar, right? Why is it always baseball? What the hell is the question, I guess?
I think history is a really difficult thing to ignore. And I think history can be weaponized. And I think that's what's happening. I think that if you had people who wanted to make a deal, they would not always fall back on the terrible relations and sow any seeds of discord. But you know what, Rich? Those seeds of discord that have been sowed in the players, they were the same ones that were sowed generations ago when players fought for free agency, when the notion of free agency was utterly ridiculous, and nobody ever thought that thing like that should happen.
I guess the lesson is that it took so long for Marvin Miller to finally get his due, and of all the years for that to happen, right? Yeah. It's kind of crazy.
And here's the thing, though. Like the fight for free agency was a very righteous fight. What's the union? What I want players to answer, and what I'm curious about is, what's the union fighting for now? If the answer is they're fighting for their fair wage and what they believe they are due and owed, I get it. I totally understand that. But I'm also curious if it's something more, and if they see this as a microcosm of a bigger thing.
Well, and I guess again to put it in full bloom here, that players have never fought for their wage where the threat of maybe winding up on a ventilator is a possibility, right? And also baseball owners have never thought about the bottom line because a pandemic has hit either. I guess, although I don't know what the conversation was back in 1918, but I guess to put a much lighter note on it, as you attempted to do moments ago, if this does not happen, I'll need a lot of Jobu's rum. How does that sound?
If this doesn't happen, I'm really looking forward to covering Major League darts.
I'm with you, Jeff. I'm with you. Thanks for the call, man. You are the best at what you do. I really mean it. Thanks again.
Thanks, Rich. Take it easy, Bill.
Yeah, that's Jeff Passan. He's always so kind and to jump on the phone. I'm sure he's pulled in many different directions. Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.